Good morning, everybody. Great to have you here. Happy New Year, by the way, January 1st, 2024. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel, and if you enjoy the content, liking the video, that'll be helpful for us. And here we are, a new year and a new fight announcement, courtesy of Conor McGregor, who came out yesterday evening and posted a video stating that he's coming back on June 29th. That would be International Fight Week to take on an expected opponent in Michael Chandler. Now, Michael Chandler is one of the smaller lightweights in the division, and we know that Conor McGregor made his hay and came about in the UFC at 145 pounds, and he's bulked up tremendously. So one first catch here is this fight isn't scheduled to take place until June 29th, International Fight Week. That's number one. Number two, this gives Conor McGregor some time to get his act together. And Michael Chandler, who's been sitting idle on the sideline for well over a year, he's been licking his chops, waiting for this opportunity. But also, we have to realize now that Michael Chandler will be 38 years of age by the time this fight takes place. And Conor McGregor's birthday is in, I believe, July. So he'll still be 35. McGregor, much larger. I know that McGregor came in at 145 pounds in the UFC, but you look at his growth physically, the man's head has gotten much larger, his torso, arms, legs, etc. I know that he sustained that horrific leg injury against Dustin Poirier and has taken a long time off. The last time Conor McGregor won a fight was versus Donald Cerrone in the UFC, and it's been a long time. Now it's 2024. I believe that fight against Donald Cerrone took place in 2020. Now, Michael Chandler, I stood next to Michael Chandler before. I'd say he's about 5'5" or so. I know he's listed at, I believe, 5'8". That is way off. And Michael Chandler is going to be at a significant size disadvantage here, considering this bout. If McGregor gets his way and this fight takes place at 185 pounds, we're talking about Deron Winn size fighter here, a Deron Winn size middleweight. And the gas tank of either of these fighters is going to be a major factor here. McGregor, we're looking at, I'd say, maybe 2.5 minutes of optimal performance before he falls off of a cliff here, considering he's been out so long. And we know he's a very explosive fighter, but early, I expect McGregor to be completely locked in for at least a couple of minutes. And Michael Chandler, we know how he closes the distance and enters the pocket ferociously with explosive power. So I think this is going to be one of those fights where we see a fighter get dropped quickly and put out. And if you're asking me to break down this fight, I think that McGregor ends up finding the target first, and I think that he ends up knocking out Michael Chandler. So as far as the fight breakdown goes, Chandler, yes, he has the wrestling up his sleeve, and we saw against Gaethje, he's able to use it for moments, but then he just goes buck wild at times, Michael Chandler, that is, and throws caution to the wind. He wants to please the fans, and it's a shame, really, because Michael Chandler, if he fought to his strengths, he could potentially have held the belt. I think Chandler had the potential to compete at 145 pounds. I know he carries a lot of muscle weight, but we've seen other fighters lose muscle weight in the past and perform well. Reminds me of Chad Mendez out there, Michael Chandler, very similar stature. If you have a chance, there's a picture of TJ Dillashaw and Michael Chandler standing next to one another, and both of them are almost identical. And in height and in build during or out of camp, and you look at Michael Chandler here. Now, he's going to get paid big time. We know both of these fighters are going to get paid, but I believe that this comes down to McGregor. Yes, I believe McGregor's washed at this point in his career. Um, I believe that the desire to compete, and that's everything that McGregor's known. His life has consisted of proving himself and competing. And when you don't have that, when he hasn't had that, we've seen outside of the octagon what's happened to him. He's kind of fallen off of a cliff. Yes, he's been successful in many business ventures, but we've also seen another side of McGregor too, the dark side as well. So I think that for at least 6-9 months, we're talking about McGregor here coming together, putting all of the ducks in a row, getting a solid camp under his belt. He can't have yes men around him, though, for the better part of these 9 months. He's going to have to get tested in the training room. And I think that for about 2.5, 3 minutes of time, we should see a solid McGregor here. Now, McGregor, we've seen him compete at 170 pounds for the Nate Diaz fights. Nate Diaz is, I don't consider Nate Diaz a high caliber fighter. We saw McGregor's cardio and his that he has limits to his game in many of the Nate Diaz fights. He's able to be successful in spurts and then can't put it all together for extended periods of time. I go back to, I think that the best performance I saw from McGregor, I know a lot of folks point out the Jose Aldo performance, but that was a situation where he ended up just catching Aldo. But watch the fight back against Chad Mendes, McGregor versus Mendes. That was a great performance. I believe I watched that in a movie theater at one point. UFC was holding events in movie theaters where you could actually watch the live pay-per-view. This fight, though, I'm glad that it's getting matched up. At least McGregor will be able to feel his oats for a few minutes, and Michael Chandler gets paid. Is going to make a lot of money here and will be able to perform. Now, evenly lined fight. Currently, I believe McGregor is only minus 120 or so at one book. But if you're asking what does the UFC want to play out here, what do they want to see happen? And I believe that McGregor is likely the A side here, and they want him to come out victorious. So you got USADA out of the way right now, so it should be a clear path for a competitive matchup. And Michael Chandler, I hate seeing talent sit idle on the sidelines, and that has been what's happened here. Chandler will be at a significant reach disadvantage here. 185 pounds, if that really happens, the amount of muscle weight that these fighters are going to be carrying around should lend itself to horrific gas tanks. Gas tanks. Go back to watch Duran Win fight, and you'll see what a 5'5" middleweight looks like, and that should be what Michael Chandler ends up looking like. What he'll be a little bit more bricked up, but the size, the reach, etc. That's what you'll be looking at. And McGregor, he has a few inches of height, few inches of reach here, and I think that if he's looking to gain a competitive advantage here over Michael Chandler, yes, fighting up at 185 pounds makes sense for McGregor for at least one instance. And the other thing is, if you're talking delusions of grandeur, McGregor could potentially see Sean Strickland and others as a clear path for a title when you compare that to what's at stake against somebody like Islam Makhachev and Leon Edwards at the lightweight and welterweight belt holders. So interesting matchup. If you'd like to share your thoughts in the comments section, please do so below. I will say that Michael Chandler, yes, he has a dog in him, and he's gonna fight hard for your money like he always does for a few minutes. We saw against Dan Hooker, took Dan Hooker's block off, and Tony Ferguson as well. He can get in there and explode on these fighters, but the defensive prowess for at least a few minutes and the striking ability of Conor McGregor, the range management of Conor McGregor should be a difference maker early in this fight. So I'm going to be picking Conor McGregor here. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. By the way, I'm going to be putting out, my goal is at least one video a day of quality YouTube content. And today we broke down the fight announcement yesterday, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler on June 29th at International Fight Week at 185 pounds. So the pick's going to be Conor McGregor. And I do expect this line to eventually move at some point in McGregor's favor. But the other thing is you're going to have some of that bankroll tied up for a number of months here. So could you get a better ROI by placing bets elsewhere and stockpiling those units? So cheers to you. Have a great rest of the day and go get what's yours, my brothers. Take care.